So you've gathered your friends. You've decided you're going to play some Dungeons and Dragons. But that brings into question, who's going to be the Dungeon Master? In today's video, we're going to talk about a few things that'll help you become a better Dungeon Master. Let's get started. What's going on? Baron here from the Blue Dragon Guild. Being a Dungeon Master is not always an easy task. You've got all this prep work, you've got to figure out what your players are playing, you've got to figure out what you're going to do with the story, figure out your encounters. It all adds up really quick. But one thing that you can do to ensure that you are prepared, read your book. I know it seems obvious, but sometimes as DMs, we glance through the book, we get a basic idea, and we just roll with it. I know if you're coming from older editions of Dungeons & Dragons, it's really easy to do that because in your mind you're thinking, I know how to do this, I've DM'd before. But even with that, there's several rule changes. And if you're a new Dungeon Master, the books are going to be your best friend during your DMing process. The first book I suggest you read is the Player's Handbook. The Player's Handbook covers everything from character creation to magic spells, all the way to combat and movement rules. Once you've figured out what classes, what races your party is planning to play in your upcoming session, read through those. You don't need to understand every little nuance of the races and the classes, but it's good to have an understanding of all the basic stuff. That way, if a situation arises that is questioned during your session, you can say, hey, this is it. This is the answer. If you'd like to see a video covering some of our favorite classes and party builds, click the link right up here. Moving on to the spells, you don't need to have every single spell in the book memorized. If you do, that's pretty impressive. But if any of your NPCs are spellcasters, you'll want to look through the spells, figure out what those spells are going to be, if it's a character that you're making up, if it's a character that's in one of the books, the monster manual, or in the back of the player's handbook. You'll want to look those up and figure out how they work. That way in the middle of combat, you're not stopping and saying, wait guys, hold on, I gotta look this up. Once you've looked at those spells, looked them over, have some notes written down, it'll help you be better prepared for that session. As for the combat's a pretty big part of D&D, because you've got monsters, you're probably going to end up fighting them. Understanding just the basics of the combat will make things flow so much better and keep your story moving along. The next book you should take a look at is the Dungeon Master's Guide. The DMG covers everything from tips on building your own world, running the game, it's got magic items, it's even got variant rules that you can put in there to change things up from time to time. In the Dungeon Master's Guide, Part 1 alone is dedicated to creating your own world, creating a multiverse, going to different planes of existence. Part 2 of the book deals with creating your adventure, creating your non-player characters, your NPCs. It's got a chapter on adventure environments. You're in a swamp. You're in a dungeon deep in the Underdark. So many different options there that you can use. One of my favorite chapters in the Dungeon Master's Guide is the chapter on treasure and magic items. Every player wants treasure. There's no way around it. That's just how it is. And in Part 3 of the Dungeon Master's Guide, it gives you more information on running the game. That's where you'll find those variant rules. In the last book, the Monster Manual. Once you have figured out what monsters you might want to have in your game, read up on them. You'll figure out what environments they usually hang out in, if they have friends, if they have enemies that are usually associated with them. It all goes that extra mile for better immersion within your game to make your players feel like they're actually living in your world as their characters. The Player's Handbook, the Dungeon Master's Guide, and the Monster Manual are the 3 core books for running a Dungeons & Dragons game. If you just have the ability to get one, I suggest the Player's Handbook. That really has everything in it. In the back of it, there's even monsters that you can pit against your party. Further books to read, Xanathar's Guide to Everything. It's got more player options, and it's got more Dungeon Master's tools. There's also Volo's Guide to Monsters, and Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. Both of those have more race options and new monsters that you can fight. Let us know down in the comments what your favorite book is to read when prepping for a D&D game. If you never want to miss a video, hit the subscribe button and ring the little bell to always get our notifications. Until next time, keep the dice rolling.